Every once in a while, the world gathers to listen, not to noise, but to a presence, not to chaos, but to clarity. And today, on the vibrant soil of Brazil, the arrival of one man, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, reminds us that leadership can be quiet, yet thunderous. His steps into BRICS 2025 are not just political gestures. They are footprints of a rising civilization, echoing with 5,000 years of wisdom and the dreams of tomorrow. India does not walk into rooms with loud demands. India enters with calm courage, offering ideas, not ultimatums. And as the BRICS nations meet, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, India brings not just statistics or trade deals, but soul. A vision where progress includes the farmer and the coder, where technology bows to values, and where diplomacy means lifting others, not overpowering them. In this summit, India doesn't seek dominance. It offers dialogue. It doesn't point fingers. It extends hands. The world today is wounded by division, battered by voices that scream rather than speak. But India arrives in Brazil with the strength of silence and the power of purpose. A reminder that sometimes the boldest voice is the one that chooses peace over pride. There comes a time in every generation when the world begins to tilt, not toward chaos, but toward change. And often, that change begins quietly. No grand entrance, no fierce declarations, just a steady walk onto a world stage with intention and grace. That's what we are witnessing now. As Prime Minister Modi arrives in Brazil for the BRICS 2025 summit, it's not just a diplomatic visit. It is a symbol of India's rising role in the global order, built not on conquest, but on contribution. We live in a world that is hungry for new leadership. Leadership that listens before it speaks, that builds bridges instead of borders, that brings people together not through fear, but through shared purpose. And in this moment, India doesn't just show up. India shows the way. Because true leadership is not measured by the loudness of one's voice, but by the depth of one's vision. And right now, the world is listening to India, not because it's demanding attention, but because it's earning respect. India's emergence isn't a surprise, it's a return, a reawakening. For centuries, India has been a civilizational force, rich in culture, spirit, intellect, and humanity. The world once came to India for knowledge, trade, and timeless wisdom. And now, that same world is watching India rise again, not through domination, but through dedication. Not by mimicking others, but by honoring its own roots, while reaching for a shared future. This summit is not just about agreements and handshakes. It's about presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need a spotlight. Prime Minister Modi walks into Brazil not only as a political leader, but as the voice of a billion hopes. And the way he carries that responsibility, grounded, calm, purposeful, is precisely what makes it powerful. He isn't here to posture. He's here to participate. He's not here to compete with the world. He's here to collaborate with it. Look at the timing. In a world spinning with uncertainty, economies shaking, alliances shifting, trust eroding, India is not just stable, it is rising, not just economically, but morally, because its growth is not limited to GDP. It's rooted in how it treats its people, how it embraces technology, how it respects traditions while preparing for tomorrow. This kind of leadership doesn't scream, "Look at me." It simply shows up and says, "Let's walk together." It takes maturity to be firm without being forceful. It takes confidence to enter a room with humility. It takes strength to lead without creating fear. That is what India is embodying at BRICS 2025, and the world notices. They see that India doesn't come to divide, it comes to unite. It doesn't try to overshadow, it offers light for others to see their own path. That is how true power works. Quiet, steady, radiant. India's voice on this global platform isn't one of dominance. It is one of dignity. In a world tired of shouting matches and political theatrics, the soft yet strong voice of India is like a breath of fresh air. It reminds us that you can lead through service, through strategy, through values. It reminds us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers with unshakable clarity. And let's not forget, India's rise is not just national, it is deeply human. It represents the rise of the underdog, of those who were once counted out. It is the story of resilience, of rebuilding, of reimagining what's possible when a nation believes in itself. This is not just about India's arrival. It's about what that arrival stands for. Hope in uncertain times, balance in a polarized world, and a future that includes more chairs at the table, not fewer. So when India steps into BRICS this year, it isn't merely a presence, it's a pulse. A rhythm of something timeless and timely. And what makes this moment extraordinary is not just who is leading India, but how India chooses to lead. Through inclusion, through insight, through integrity. There's a unique kind of power that doesn't come with a clenched fist or a thunderous voice. It doesn't need to overpower the room or make headlines with confrontation. It's the power that walks in gently, yet unshakably. It stands not above people, but among them. And that is the power of peaceful leadership. As the world watches Prime Minister Modi step onto the BRICS 2025 stage in Brazil, what we are witnessing is not just another world leader attending a summit. We are witnessing a model of leadership that the world is desperately in need of. Leadership rooted in wisdom, clarity, and restraint. Leadership that knows when to speak and when silence can say more than words ever could. In a time where political theatrics dominate screens and debates become battlegrounds, there's something deeply moving about a leader who chooses calm over chaos. A leader who doesn't seek attention by stirring division, but by offering direction. So, in a time where political theatrics dominate screens and division, but by offering direction, when you observe India's approach to diplomacy today, especially in the midst of shifting global dynamics, you realize something profound. This isn't about reacting. It's about responding with purpose. That's what peaceful leadership looks like. It doesn't come from trying to win every argument. It comes from knowing which ones are worth having in the first place. India could have chosen aggression. It could have chosen loud rebuttals or dramatic postures. But instead, it chooses presence. A powerful, silent assurance that strength does not need to be loud to be recognized. There's a reason the world leans in when a country like India speaks. Because its voice is anchored not in dominance, but in depth. In the understanding that real change happens not just through laws or policies, but through the energy a nation brings to the table. And India brings a quiet fire burning steady, not wild, focused, not forceful. When you look at the way Prime Minister Modi represents India on the international stage, it becomes clear that this is not about proving something to the world. It's about staying true to the identity India has carried for centuries. A civilization that uplifts without seeking conquest, that leads without needing to control. And that's where real leadership begins. Not with what you demand of others, but with what you offer, consistently, even when the cameras aren't rolling. And there's beauty in that. Because the world today doesn't just need clever policies or strategic alliances. It needs healing. It needs voices that rise not to overpower, but to unify. It needs leaders who understand that long-term peace is built through moments of maturity, restraint, and quiet resolve. India's peaceful diplomacy isn't passive. It's deliberate, it's thoughtful, it's strategic. It is the kind of leadership that says, we are not here to fight, we are here to build. And make no mistake, that kind of leadership takes courage. It's easy to shout, easy to point fingers, but it takes real strength to stay grounded when provoked, to remain composed when misjudged, and to answer criticism not with bitterness, but with vision. That's what we're seeing in India's global posture right now. Not silence as weakness, but silence as strength. Not avoidance, but elevation. And this leadership doesn't just serve India, it inspires others. It reminds the world that peace and power are not opposites, that you can be resolute and respectful, that you can hold your ground without shaking the ground of others. And in doing so, you create space for dialogue, for understanding, for shared growth. That is what this moment at BRICS symbolizes. Not just India's presence, but India's principle. A belief that diplomacy isn't a performance, it's a responsibility. And those who carry it with humility often end up having the loudest, most lasting impact. Because the world forgets noise, but it remembers dignity. So when we talk about peaceful leadership, we're not talking about the absence of action. We're talking about intentional, wise action. Leadership that transforms not just policies, but perceptions. And India, in this moment, is showing us all that true power doesn't need to shout to be heard. It simply needs to be consistent, clear, and committed to peace. And that kind of power changes everything. So, leadership, that is what is not just terms of discipline. It is not just discipline. It is not just discipline. That is what comes out of peace. Leadership that changes people. That changes this world. One of the greatest strengths any nation can carry into the world is the courage to be fully itself. Not a copy, not a version shaped to meet someone else's expectations, but an authentic reflection of its own soul. And when we look at India, standing at the BRICS 2025 summit, we are witnessing that strength in motion. Because India doesn't show up wearing someone else's identity. It arrives wrapped in the beauty of its own. 1 billion people, speaking dozens of languages, holding countless beliefs, born of many traditions, yet rising as one voice. That is not confusion. That is not contradiction. That is unity in diversity. And it's the foundation of real strength. In a time where the world is often divided by difference, India offers something precious. A living example that diversity doesn't have to divide us. It can deepen us. It can connect us in ways that are more meaningful than uniformity ever could. India teaches us that you don't have to agree on everything to walk in the same direction. That multiple truths can exist within one story and still move together toward a shared future. This is a country that prays in temples, in mosques, in churches, in gurdwaras. and sometimes simply in silence. A land where ancient chants meet artificial intelligence, where palm leaves carry the same importance as microchips. It is not confused between tradition and technology. It is dancing with both. India is not choosing between heritage and innovation. It is saying we will lead because of both. That's what makes this moment at BRICS so significant. India isn't just bringing policies to the table. It's bringing a philosophy. One that says strength does not mean sameness. That harmony is not built by silencing difference, but by embracing it with maturity and purpose. And that's what the world needs now more than ever. Because we are not just facing global economic shifts, we are facing cultural fragmentation. We are facing identity crises that make people feel like they have to choose between their roots and their relevance. But India's example says, you don't have to pick. You can be deeply rooted and still rise sky high. There's something deeply moving about a country that can carry both the sacred and the scientific in the same sentence, that can quote ancient scriptures and also lead digital revolutions, that can look backward with respect and look forward with fire. That kind of balance doesn't come from strategy alone. It comes from centuries of lived wisdom, from millions of people learning every day how to live with each other, how to honor difference without fear. And in this world where so many are building walls, India shows up with a different kind of architecture. One that builds bridges, not just with other countries, but within itself. And that's the harder kind of leadership. It's easy to rally people by narrowing them down to one identity. It's easy to divide. What's hard is to inspire people to see their common humanity without erasing their unique voice. India has been doing that for generations. Not perfectly, but persistently. It is this kind of leadership that quietly transforms the world. Because when a country like India stands up and says, we are many, but we are one, it becomes more than just a political message. It becomes a moral compass. A reminder that it is possible to belong to different paths and still walk together with dignity. That's what India brings to BRICS. Not just numbers, not just economic muscle, but the wisdom of coexistence. In its diversity lies its diplomacy. In its inclusion lies its influence. And in its unity lies its unmatched power. Not the kind that needs armies or applause, but the kind that shifts consciousness, that opens minds, that dares the world to imagine a different way of being strong. Because true strength isn't found in isolation. It's found in the ability to stand in a circle where everyone belongs. And India, with all its languages, colors, traditions, and dreams, reminds us that the world doesn't need to become smaller to be united. It needs to become more understanding. That is the voice echoing in Brazil today. Not just a national voice, but a human one. A voice that says, diversity is not our weakness, it is our gift. It is our legacy. And it is our future. Hope is not a vague feeling. It is a direction. It is the quiet, stubborn belief that we can build something better, not just for ourselves, but for one another. And when a nation like India stands up at the BRICS 2025 summit with clarity and compassion, it is doing more than speaking. It is offering that direction to the world. Because in these times that feel fragile, uncertain, divided, what we need more than competition is cooperation. What we need more than blame is shared responsibility. And what India brings to that table is exactly that. A vision not of domination, but of collaboration. This is a nation that understands the pulse of a global moment where everything is shifting: climate, technology, alliances, values. And yet, instead of retreating inward or posturing outward, India steps forward with a calm steadiness that says, we're not here to fight for the future. We're here to help shape it together. That matters. That energy matters. Because power isn't just about what you can do alone. It's about what you're willing to do together. India's presence at BRICS is not about standing taller than the rest. It's about standing beside. It's about extending its experience, its innovations, its ideas, not as answers, but as invitations. To build economies that include the excluded. To create technologies that serve, not just succeed. To create technologies that serve, not just succeed. To protect the planet, not just profit from it. This is shared global responsibility. Not a slogan, but a lived philosophy. A quiet revolution of values in a loud world. And it takes courage to bring that kind of message into international spaces, because it's easier to play the game the way it's always been played. Focus on power blocks, compete over resources, guard your seat at the table. But India is not just playing a game. India is reshaping it. It's asking, what if leadership meant creating more chairs, not fewer? What if growth meant growing together, not just ahead? What if being a world power didn't mean holding others down, but lifting many up? These questions aren't just political. They're deeply human. Because when you look around the world, you see a hunger, not just for material things, but for meaning. For systems that honor dignity, for governments that care. For international alliances that don't just talk policy but live out purpose. That's what makes India's tone at BRICS so different. It's not transactional, it's transformational. It's not reactive, it's reflective. India isn't just bringing its economy to the global stage, it's bringing its soul. A soul that believes in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. That might sound poetic in boardrooms, but in India, it's lived. It's the reason India sends vaccines to countries in need, even when it faces its own challenges. It's the reason it invests in clean energy, not just to lead, but to learn and share. It's the reason India speaks of AI, not just as artificial intelligence, but as augmented intention. Technology that enhances our humanity, not replaces it. This is the kind of leadership that doesn't lecture, it listens. That doesn't judge, it joins hands. And that kind of leadership, in a world wounded by mistrust, can begin to heal. Because global responsibility isn't just about governments, it's about people. It's about reminding every citizen that their future is tied to others' futures. That no country is safe if others are suffering. That real peace comes not from walls, but from wisdom. So when India speaks at BRICS, not in outrage, but in optimism, it is planting a seed that says maybe the most powerful thing we can do right now is care. Care about the planet, care about one another, care enough to try, to reach out, to reimagine. That's not weakness. That's the deepest form of strength. Because it takes strength to believe when so much tells you to give up. It takes strength to show up with light in a room full of shadows. And that's what this moment is. A light, a reminder that hope doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks quietly into a summit room in Brazil, with purpose in its stride and a billion voices behind it, whispering the same word, together. It speaks with no need to overpower, but with the desire to uplift. In a room filled with powerful leaders, India speaks from the heart of its people. A billion voices threaded into one purpose: progress with peace. And maybe, just maybe, that is the new kind of power. The power that doesn't intimidate, but inspires. The power that doesn't conquer, but connects. As we watch this moment unfold in Brazil, may we all be reminded, true leadership is not just how you speak in front of the world, but how you carry your people with you. How you listen, how you stand firm without hurting, and how you shine without casting shadows on others. India's bold voice at BRICS 2025 is not loud, it is luminous. It is not about rising above others, but rising with others. And in this uncertain world, may that voice be the one that guides us all towards something better. Thank you for watching, thank you for feeling, and thank you for believing that peace, power, and progress can live in the same sentence.